the idea of getting hyper clear on what you're doing. I know you've talked about it as ikigai, um, but also taking action on things. Like spend all the time in the world you want getting hyper clear on something, but it doesn't mean anything if you're not actually doing something to get there. Otherwise, you just have a daydream. Like take action towards the goal. So
No, man, I love it. Yeah, and that's what's this whole channel, that's what it's all about. It's like how do we, become the 1%? How do we get to the top 1%? And it's by becoming 1% better daily. Like it's just which is founded and rooted in action. Like you can't get there without that effort. So I'm obviously a fan of that. But man, like why don't you tell the people who you are and what you're doing? Let's just like get into it, dude.
yeah, I'm David Oltman, as you've stated. I run the insurance agency Clarity Insurance, and a lot of what I do is help business owners and homeowners make sure that they are properly protected without paying more than what they need for insurance, as well as helping them understand what that means. Like what's inside an insurance policy when it comes to home insurance, what's inside the business owner's policy, and why is this one maybe better than that one, even though we tend to be trained to look at insurance as do I have it or not, and how much does it cost me?
Yeah.
Because when you have to use it, sometimes the one that costs you the least amount is not the one that you thought you had.
Mhm.
So that's a big part of it. And then just the education side of it, just taking time to help people get through this stuff and clear up the waters around insurance. That's why I named it the way I did, Clarity Insurance.
No, man, I love that. And it's definitely needed. We're very big on insurances in Uncaged. Insurances can look like anything, but it's just a different level of protection. It's a different level of just feeling like a fucking man. Like, I actually talked about this pretty openly. But back when fuck we were running a multi-million-dollar, business and we were taking home close to $1 million. So whether you want to call us millionaires or not, like we were dabbling around that space. But dude, it was one of those things we were making so much money where we felt like we could outrun any problem that we had, out earn any situation that we got backed into. And then when we started to understand how to be business owners and adults, um, you know, and we shut that business down and started building Uncaged from the ground up. We were operating off a fraction of the revenue but felt more secure because we did it the right way. And insurance is being a big part of that. I mean, it's hard. One of I talk to men all the time, and one of the biggest fucking things uh when it comes to being a man or like what men want to accomplish to feel like a man is that they could provide for their family no matter what happens. And insurance is a huge piece of that. So
Well,
huge.
I love that. I love that last little bit you just said. Provide no matter what happens, because that ties right into, two insurances I don't think they get talked about enough. Predominantly I was talking home auto insurance, but life and disability. Like, hey, and Zach, your story lines right up with some of this stuff too. What happens if you're, we'll say, on a motorcycle and you get into that accident? There's two outcomes. Well, three, I suppose, because the third one is everything's fine, just the motorcycle's effed. But one is you don't walk away. Two is you walk away, but there's complications. And then the third one, obviously, is you walk away. How do you make sure that your kids, your family, your businesses operate in those first two instances?
And to get clarity on the matter, you know um just as a great selling point for you is just understanding what your policy entails, because I thought I was covered. So I had long-term disability when the wreck happened, but this is me, and I'm fucking, I'm 22 at the time. I spent my 23rd birthday in emergency surgery. Um, But even though like I thought I was doing the right things, at that age though, like you're really just kind of doing what some random person told you to do. You don't understand to ask more questions. And even if you did, maybe you don't even understand the ramifications or the complications that can come into it. But anyways, I thought I was golden, if you will, because um I had long-term disability and it was like 70% of my income or something like that, or 75, whatever it was supposed to be. But I didn't realize that the way I got paid was I got paid a W-2, but then also because I did a lot of extra stuff too, because my business owner that I worked for at the time had a side company that I also operated through, and that majority of that money was 1099. So here I am, I'm like, because I was making six figures at the time. So I was like, bro, I can't leave the house. I was like, fucking 7 grand a month. Absolutely, I can survive off that. Motherfucker, my long-term disability came in at 1,200 bucks a month because it was only based on my
Oh,
W-2 and income and not my 1099. And so I ended up losing my house over it. My whole story was basically fuck. My whole story is basically due to having improper insurances, losing everything, crashing my credit score, every ounce of savings myself and my family went through, gone. Every line of collection or credit I had went into collections, all because I'm expecting 7,000 bucks a month and I ended up with 1,200. So
it's a
yeah, scary
big
situation being
change.
in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, no,
And
man.
I'll bet you part of the reason why he got sold that policy is the agent, one, he wanted to make a sale. Two, he didn't ask enough questions. And three, at the end of the day, he felt he improved your situation enough to where, a 22-year-old could get by until, he was 25 or 30 and had something more to deal with.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Blame on both sides for sure. I should have
Oh
taken
yeah.
a
Oh yeah.
little bit more information, but no, man. So you said something at the beginning of this that I find just so satisfying how simple it is. And I can't remember where this came from originally, but I heard a phrase and it goes along the lines of if you want clarity in something, get rid of distractions. And like, man, like, cause you were talking about getting hyper focused on like things that we want, I'm a huge proponent of that. I'm a big believer in Rob Deerdeck, and there's other variations out there. I think Muhammad Ali, and then who knows how deep that really goes. But basically, it was like, the more specific you can be about something, the more successful you will be at it. Actually, I apologize. It wasn't from Muhammad Ali. It was so Rob Deerdeck made a comment that make your own luck, which is a derivative of Muhammad Ali, I think is who said it. Which is like uh, if
The
you want to
harder
be
I
like,
work, the luckier I become.
yeah. And so anyway, so that's that phrase. So it wasn't Muhammad Ali that said, the success comment that I got from Rob Deerdeck. But anyways, the point squirrel. The point about, the more specific you can be about something, the more successful you will be at it. And that's like really something that I've been focused on a lot lately is if I can't be specific about something, A, do I care enough about it? B, have I done enough research to even fucking understand what that means? And then C, have I come up with a game plan to achieve it? Because, bro, I'll fucking tell you. I made a post earlier today asking people, like, how much money do you need to make to be able to live the life that you want to live, like your dream life forever? And, you'll see a bunch of random people out there like spitting out numbers. And some will see like some of these like crazy numbers that some of us are throwing around. And they're like, wow, like y'all must want to live a more extravagant life than I do, blah, blah, blah. And it all comes down to, yeah, like, what do you think success is? But when you start to think about we're all humans, it's natural to like want to do cool shit. Like I feel like, and there's obviously some people that are more content with lesser. But I mean, if you ever offered them an opportunity to go drive a Lamborghini through the fucking desert, they would take it, like whatever. But so it's, it's funny to see these people who, it's not that I don't think that they wouldn't take a life if it was something easily achievable, but they put such a level of difficulty attached to some of these numbers. And it's because it's foreign to them. And the reason it's foreign to them is because they haven't gotten specific. Because, bro, and I've been hanging around people that do crazy, fucking crazy numbers. I start to realize like it might not be easy, but it's simple. Doing
Hmm.
the fucking work, which is what you got to, spoke about at the beginning of this. So like what does that path look like for David like when it comes to seeing something, wanting something, and as you established earlier, getting fucking clear on it and then doing the work. Like what does that mean to you?
Yeah. So what does that mean to me? Or are we kind of looking more like what are the steps I take
Let's
to
do
get
both. Let's
that?
start with what does it mean, and then like let's look at something like actually applicable for the people that are listening.
Yeah. So what getting clear on it does, or what it means, and doing the work is, I mean, one, making sure I get into alignment with what I want and talking that out with my wife, because if they're not, if she's not on board, no one's on board, and it makes the work at least 10 times more. And there are times where it's like, look, this is what we need to do. And I'm sorry I can't articulate it in the right way, but this is kind of the direction we're going to go. And so you just got to do that extra work. But it's a lot easier when the
Yeah,
spouse is on board, man.
facts.
Yeah. So that's kind of the first step of the process there. But it's really figuring out what the goal is and breaking that down into how do I get there and having actual conversations around what that means. Put numbers to it and then go and do it. And also giving yourself some grace because half the time when you come up with something, you realize it's a great idea at that time, but you start getting close to it and maybe it changes.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
100%.
yeah, it's not something that has to be set in stone, but if you're taking activity or taking action and creating activity towards what you think you want at that time, you're going to be better than where you were. And that's ultimately all I want to do is make a better situation for my wife and kids than what my mom and myself and my brother had when I was growing up.
No, man, that's
That's
huge.
the crux.
Yeah, that's huge. And I think a lot of times people miss that, especially when they're going through the 30-day challenge. And if you're in Uncaged, there's a lot of conversations about like what your dream life looks like. Because, like, dude, I'm a firm believer that we all deserve to feel happy and fulfilled and do all the cool shit that we want with the people that we want, and like just doing life together with people that we truly, care about. And, the thing is as you progress down this journey of life, if you're looking at a map and you like see a bunch of forks in the road and you're trying to decide like which route to take, like when you're just starting off, like we want to be strategic with decisions we make. So like we want to do our best to, measure twice, cut once, and but the thing is you're making decisions with the information that you have at hand right now. So as you progress down that journey, naturally you're going to learn things. You're going to see which way not to go. You're going to have to double
Mm-hmm.
back a little bit and take the other fork in the road. And so as you start to progress through this, you're learning things. You're passing other people on the journey that you can get and gather information from. Like there's opportunities that as you progress through this, you can reevaluate some of the directions that you're headed because now you have more information than you did when you previously made that decision. But I think so many people get so hung up on really one of two things. either they want to wait for the perfect time to get started or till they have the everything, every fucking detail planned out. Um, or they just want to completely wing it with no strategy and they just fucking go balls to the wall and end up getting burnt out or lost or distracted. And then once they hit enough fucking, roadblocks, they just throw out the white flag. Whereas there's somewhere in the middle that like it requires the balls to go going, but also the wisdom to make the best decision with the information that you have. But part of that is being comfortable understanding that at some point you're going to have to pivot. Like no one's expecting, like, I don't know what the success fucking rate is. I bet it's one in a fucking trillion. There's like, oh, we're going to, we've made perfect decisions. We've never made a wrong decision. Like we started and we accomplished our goal and, life was fucking unicorns and rainbow farts. But like, yeah, what's like kind of this journey been like for you? Like to your point, like getting started, get going, learn from your mistakes. But like, because you said earlier, it takes clarity and it takes action. So somewhere in there, you had a little bit of both. You took a little bit of action because you had a little bit of clarity, or you've got a little bit of clarity because you took action. Like, what's kind of been that trade off, like looking back on your life to get you from where you started to where you are now? Like, what's kind of transpired in your experience with that?
Hmm. Um, it's kind of tough because a lot of the benchmarks that I attribute to where I'm at are major things that have happened in my life too. So like just having a mindset of adapt and overcome because the road's never smooth. And that comes from just the way I grew up as a kid under a less than amazing stepdad. Like, so interesting childhood. And then grow into an adult and get out on my own rather quickly at the age of 17 and learn kind of how the real world works without being at the house. Um, so that gives you a little bit of clarity in things at an early age, which then I start taking, you know, scattershotting ideas on what I'm going to do because, early or late teens, early 20s, like that's really, I think, how you live life. Um, and from there, I learned that um, I had a natural propensity towards finances. And I had friends that were coming and asking these questions. And then I was working a job in, I'd been there for 5 years. I started basically at the, start of the recession in 2008. And I worked there for about 5 years and realized that I got into a position of uh, hitting some ceilings and I either move up into a management position and then hit the ceiling there eventually and try to do that again and again in this job that I don't own, or I get into something that maybe I care about a little bit more. And I did. I got into financial advising at that point. That gave me something where I needed to get more clarity around things. Um, and I think, honestly, looking at it, the financial advising portion of my life, the 2 years I did that, I spent a lot more time trying to get clarity than I did action, but I had just enough action to be okay. But then that all kind of changed when I had a friend of mine and his dad both get murdered in 2015. So clarity and action kind of got all muddled up. Um, it did lead me to focusing on just insurance. And from there, because I was trying to gain more clarity while still doing a bit of action. Um, I ended up actually changing where I was at twice in a year, and I failed out because enough. I didn't have enough of clarity or action, partly because I just couldn't think straight. was the first time I ever lost anybody close to me. So I was processing that side of life. Um, so then action was forced on me. Like, you have to take this path, right? So then again, I learned what I needed to be doing. I got clearer around some goals over some time. I knew I wanted to come back to insurance. And it took me about 2 years, 2.5 years to get to that spot. And again, it got triggered by the loss of my brother in March of 2019. That exposed me because I was working as a operations manager for a large shipping company at the time, and that exposed me to the real truth of how these corporate entities, these gigantic corporate entities, really care about their employees. And I was like, that is not what I want. So it helped to narrow down what I was looking at and narrow down the goal and put me back on track. And so I got back into insurance, and I've been at it now for the last 6 years, something like that. And we're going on 2 years of running my agency.
Well, man, first things first is like obviously like, dude, hate to hear about all the loss that came in your life, through that period. But also this is where it gets interesting because, people claim work-life balance, life-work balance. Some people call it work-life integrate, like all, and some people say you can't have balance, like, but like, so here comes stuff happening in your personal life that obviously shook you as a human, which then affected your professional life. So now here you are, like kind of lost altogether as like a human being, like as a man, but then also as a provider and just the direction of like where to go, because that's one of the most difficult conversations I have, because I feel like you either fucking get it or you don't. Like I feel like there is no middle ground. As a lot of times, when I talk about success, it comes down to like a numerical dollar amount. Because I like to turn everything into a math problem. Now, if people would shut the fuck up before jumping my case about everything's not about money, well, we can take the numerical amount and break it down into, how many patients or clients or prospects or like, views or, anything. Like we can turn it into anything. But when you look at things that you want out of life, I don't give a fuck who you are or what it is. If it's fucking insurances, wow, that's nice and wholesome. And that's very like mature of you. Hey, motherfucker, it takes money, right? Like, and so, for me, I have enough coverage that if anything were to ever happen to me, Lottie and Heather are totally taken care of. Guess what, bitch? It takes money to pay that every fucking month, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, when we look at this stuff and we evaluate what does clarity on our life and what our goals are and our dreams and all this, like what does that equate to? And then how do we go accomplish it? Uh, that can often get us thrown off when shit like this hits the fan. And sometimes, and this might not be directly at you, but like also you don't know what you don't know till you know it, is the biggest times like I feel, because man, life be life, and bro, like shit happens all the time, and I'm not here to demean or demoralize like what you went through, because that sounds fucking horrible. But the thing is, like, unfortunately, this won't be the last time you deal with some sort of loss or just what the fuck moment. But when I talk to men in the free group, in the VIP group, whatever, that are in this like lost state, the time that it takes you to stay lost or to recover from that, again, I feel like it all comes back to how clear you are on your dream life, your dream vision, right? Like this, because the more clear, and going back to the Rob Dyrdek quote, the more specific, the men that are the most specific about their goals and their dreams, I feel like don't get lost as much and recover from being thrown off track more quicker, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
that get back on the horse. How can we get through this quicker, and lesser amounts of time, lesser number of times, right? Like, okay, you got thrown a curveball, fucking okay. Whereas if you were a lesser specific or a lesser clear man on your goals, maybe that curveball would have thrown you off your path or off your journey. So like, again, I'm not saying that that was your situation, but I'm believe that as you've progressed and as you've grown and as you've experienced things, that vision's gotten clearer and clearer and clearer along the way, and therefore you've stayed more straight and narrow on that path. So like, what's that journey kind of been like for you, where you've noticed in your own life where the more specific or the clearer you get on like your end goal, your dream life, and what does that mean for you, some of these other things have kind of fallen in place on their own without like you forcing a square peg in a round hole. Like, kind of what's that been like for you, bro?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think what it really boils down to is the clearer you get on something, the the easier the, well, you've already made the point, right? Uh, a lot of it comes down to the math problem. I'm There is a dollar amount that can be tied to success, but in my mind, success is being able to take care of the ones you love and being able to live your dream life. But there's a dollar amount tied to that. There has to be. Unless your dream life is like the cardboard box on San Diego Beach. I mean, I don't know. Um, so when that clarity happens, though, it makes the income producing activities a lot easier. And it makes providing value easier. It makes becoming a resource and center of influence easier. You still have to be doing the work, but it does simplify things. It keeps the target more in sight instead of having it's almost like if you were to liken it, I opened up the conversation with adapt and overcome because that's kind of what I got to do today, right? But that's also the story of my life. And where I directly pull that from is it's one of the core tenets of the Marine Corps. So, in that vein of thinking, if we're looking at our dream life as the target and being clear on that, that clarity basically brings like a tripod to the rifle range. It keeps your sights steady. So when that strong wind comes, right? Maybe, that next person that passes away in my life, it might knock the rifle a little bit, but it's going to keep it lined up with where I need to be. It's not going to make the course correction as major.
No, for sure. And I like that, like, just the evolution of like your life is like now it's become adapt and overcome, not like, oh shit hit the fan and now I've lost clarity and I've lost action. Like, because previously, like the version of David, I mean, hear me when I say this. I'm
100%.
not,
Yeah.
it's not that you gave up, but you kind of gave up on like, fuck, now what? Like you lost, like obviously, like you weren't that convicted about what you were doing because it was so easily stripped from you. Now, I say that with all due respect because fuck, man, like that's some heavy shit that like, obviously I wouldn't wish on anyone, but it's like, okay, now you're like, either way, we have to remain clear and we have to remain in action. So it's no longer a question of like, oh, do we just give up now that shit got hard? It's no, shit got hard, so we just adapt and overcome. So like, what's this evolution been like for you to where you start adapting to things no matter what, and you start adapt and overcoming them no matter what they are?
So what does that evolution look like?
Yeah, because I mean, at some point it clicked with you that shit's just gonna keep coming my way. And instead of just like, all right, whatever, like you were like, no, shit's coming. We adapt to it, irregardless of what it is, and we overcome it no matter what it is.
Yeah. So, I guess that evolution has forced me to grow, and I mean, it's a very stoic principle in and of itself. It's just life's going to happen, deal with it. And so, with that in mind, it's very much what is happening and what do I need to do? So, how important, I feel like it's almost not the right word, but like, how important is the thing
Mhm.
and how much is it going to take for me to deal with this and lead the people that need to be led through it without staying straying off of what I'm doing, right? So, all right, I right in the vein of what we're talking about, like somebody dies. Okay, it sucks. I still have insurance quotes I have to run. I still have income I have to generate. I still have clients that need me. Right? I can't just step away from that, not entirely. I'm a solo operation right now. I don't have the luxury of just turning it off. All right, so get the top priority stuff done. Um, and it's not always work first, but this is just the way I'm laying it out. Get your top priority stuff done and communicate with those relying on you what you have going on in your personal life. So you can take a minute to process it personally. And then as far as the personal life goes, it'd be making sure that I'm there in the moment with those that I love and that loved that individual to make sure that they're okay and take time for myself in those moments too. So it's more of a process of recognizing what's happening, dealing with it quickly and in a healthy manner without diminishing what it is, but not dropping the responsibilities of what you have.
Yeah, it's the responsibilities was the word that I was like thinking as you were kind of like going through all this, because at the end of the day, like the conviction of how we move and the way we handle certain situations, again, it's all attached to like this dream life. And for me, and that's the argument that I kind of get in with people sometimes when they hear like my numbers, because I'm very specific. I know how much I need to exit for. I know what I need to get, my portfolio to produce in order to get that exit. I also know what that exit produces for me annually, which is a mathematical equation based on my monthly, expenses that I want. And that's all broken down to the assets that I want and liabilities that I want and stuff like that. But that's also still so attached to other things. Like some of my greatest fucking memories of my entire life, unfortunately, are all attached to some things that cost money at some point, right? So it involves other people. And so we have this situation where we're losing people on one side of the equation, which sucks, obviously. But then we also have the other side of the equation where if we don't do the fucking work, we're also hurting other people that we care about. Now, obviously, it's like, oh, like, would we appreciate Johnny coming back into our life and not have passed versus like going to fucking Belize with my wife and daughter and making those memories? Yeah, obviously that's not the we don't have that control.
Yeah.
But the thing is as we go through this process, everything we do, other people are directly and indirectly, attached to things. And then that leads us to like, butterfly effect and stuff like that. Like, if David doesn't get his head out of his ass quick enough and doesn't write that policy that he needs to write, and then something happens to that family and now they're left uninsured, like now David has to deal with the pain of losing that and the guilt of that. Like there's just all this stuff that comes down to it. And so, inside of Uncaged, it's almost comical, um, because like we have people like Stoller who has Asperger's and thinks and acts and moves in a very, 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 very specific way. And he talked to us at one of the retreats, and he was like, "Man, he's like, I've gotten in a wreck before, and he was like, this is the way my life works. He's like, I'm not calling the cops because the other person's already called them. He was like, I'm calling an Uber and or a replacement car, and I'm going to wherever the fuck I was going. Because like if I was going to the gym, I'm going to the gym. If I was going to the grocery store, I'm going to the grocery store. Like whatever. Like he's like, I was actively doing something. I'm not going to allow this to keep me from doing the things that when I woke up in the earlier in the day, said that these were important tasks that I need to complete. The wreck doesn't change the importance of the task. It still is an important task to do. And so it's just wild to see how some of these other people operate at a specific level and how their brains function and where they've deriven these lessons from as far as like wisdom. And that's kind of the way I've been looking at a lot of things, because there's so much that happens outside of our control. But then there's only one thing we do control: ourselves. Like what control the controllables, like that over and over and over again comes up in Uncaged. And so it's like this constant reminder of like, what can you control? How can you control it? And not only that, like, I feel like there's a third question there that's, are you controlling it?
Yes.
So like, I think that that's something that's been very, very important in my life. Understanding is like, just because there's controllables that you have control over, if you're not controlling them, then they're not controllables at that point. So like, can you give us like some insight on that, like what you've kind of gone through? Because like at some point you picked up the reins, you got back fucking going, and I would believe that since 2019, you've gotten clearer on your vision and you've put in more work. So therefore, like you're further down this journey that we've talked about. So you've learned more lessons and stuff like that. Like, kind of what's that been like? I'm assuming that that's kind of been like some of the, we had childhood trauma and stuff like that. And then we grow up and we're young adult, and then like some trauma attached to that. And like now here we are, a little bit older, a little bit wiser, a little bit further down the journey. Like, let's talk about like what that like experience has been like for you, and like how you're applying that from like where you are today to like where you're trying to go.
Yeah. So I mean, where I was builds up to like today. I just want to be somebody that's out there, uh, being a positive influence on things, right? Um, and especially when it comes to my family. Like the proper example for a father, a husband, and just a man in society. So that's the crux of really everything I build everything off of. And building that into my professional life is also making sure that my clients are being taken care of the right way. I do my best to communicate properly and make sure that they're insured the way that they need to be, while understanding that they're going through things in their life, right? And then building this into a business that is more than just me, right? Getting agency support, getting sales staff, getting other individuals in to the business that I can coach and mentor and take care of in a really influential way, right? Help them earn what they need to earn. It's not like I'm just going to give it to them. Obviously, in an insurance agency, there's a lot of sales that happen. So help them earn what they need to earn to live the life they want to live as well.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is like we're all intertwined, like all of our lives. It's this ripple effect, and I don't have the exact statistics to like how much our life like actually impacts other people's. It's actually would be an interesting rabbit hole that I'm probably going to go down later today on now. Um, but like, for example, like when you start to think about how many people in the world there are, um, and there's a statistic that we're only like 7 people removed from anyone.
Yeah.
Like there is this like lineage or this like, you know, spider web that you can go down that we're only 7 people removed from anyone else, as far as like being able to access them. And so like when you start to really think about such a big small town kind of situation where it's like how much value can I bring to other people based on me being hyper focused on my own goals, right? Because at the end of the day, like whether it's employees that you employ, you helping them like buy their first home, have their first kid, like buy their first car, like whatever the case is, towards your clientele, like, what you're able to do as far as like wealth, either wealth security or creating wealth, because unfortunately, someone passes away, but they got a great policy and that changes the whole trajectory of that lineage, whatever the case is. Like there's so much weight that goes into some of these things that like may seem like remedial tasks to you because it's just your everyday life now. Like you wake up, you write a policy, like whatever the case is. It's like, fuck, bro. Like that seems boring as fuck when you think about it like that. But then when you start to look at this ripple effect on like all the lives that could be impacted, all the lives that can be changed. Because also too, like going back to what I said earlier, like I fucking feel different now. Like being secured and like having a goal and a vision. And like, so therefore, like I'm in a fucking better mood. Like I work better knowing that I'm protected, like knowing that my girls are taken care of. Like I don't wake up in this like fight or flight, mentality anymore, which allows me to work more efficiently, and me working more efficiently, gets us access to being able to help other people, and doing that gets me closer to my, my icky guy, my dream life. Like, so all of this stuff is like super intertwined. But the thing is like if we start to slack on that shit, like that ripple effect, the people that don't get the benefits of us creating a positive impact and positive change, like that blood's on our hands.
Mhm.
Like we're the ones that fucked them over, whether they would never find out that it was our fault or not. Like you wake up today and you set offline, you reset it online, but you set it offline that, you had to adapt and overcome today. Like if you had just decided to be a little bitch and not continue like, oh shit, my shit got sideways. Like we'll try again tomorrow. Like Monday be Monday. And like that could have negatively impacted someone else if you decided not to fucking adapt and overcome. And like, I hate to say it, like that blood's on your hands. And so like, what's kind of been, do you have any like examples or experiences like where you've seen actively like the validity and the value of the work that you're doing and how giving up at like just as fucking David would have like negatively impacted other people in your life?
Oh yeah. I mean, the first example that comes to mind, and it came to mind when you started talking about the butterfly effect of things, it was actually my wedding. Um, Huge negative impact. I mean, you can maybe argue some of it, but there was all the wedding plans were laid out, and we invited 300. I think we had like 200 show up. You know how those things go. But why this comes up is that was 3 weeks after my best friend and his dad were murdered, and he was one of my groomsmen. So now I had the whole wedding party, and obviously all the guests, and like we had already paid for everything. We weren't going to get any of the deposits back. Like it was too close. And I distinctly remember my wife saying, "Do we just reschedule?" I'm like, "No, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do this for us but also like in memorial of him, because he wouldn't want us to reschedule this. Like, he was one of my best friends. I know what he wanted, and it wasn't that. So no, we went ahead, we did it. And so May is like my best and worst month of my
Yeah.
life. So followed by June because that's when my kids are born. So there's that. And that's a best month, not
Right,
necessarily a
right.
worst month, right? So but in other contexts, if I had pushed conversations with my best friend harder, like, bud, you need to get some life insurance. You need to get life insurance, right? If I had been more convicted in that, the outcome of his situation for people that he loved would be very different. Very, very different. And the one that I think of the most, and actually it took me a while to identify the guilt that I had tied to it,
Mhm.
is his longtime girlfriend. Because they at that point they were together for like 7 years or something like that.
Mhm.
And they literally had a realtor's card on the bedside table. And within a couple of weeks, they were going to start looking for houses and like start building that life together. Now, I'm not saying money makes everything better, but when you're with someone for 7 years and you're planning a life together, um, getting a little bit more than uh, like a 2004 uh, Chevy Cavalier that was worth about $2,000 in 2015 definitely can help things.
Mhm.
It buys you the reason that one sits with me is like money isn't everything, but having that life insurance come in buys you the time to grieve. It buys you the time to deal with the situation. Because now you don't have to worry about showing up to work on Monday. You don't have to worry about if that electric bill is paid. You don't have to worry about if there's food in the fridge next week, right? Should you still talk to your work? Probably a good idea. um, but you have the ability to grieve and process what's happening. So that is one that sticks with me. On the positive side of things, because I had gone through that, it built a conviction of, hey, this is what's happening. And this is why you really should do this. And this one translated more into a homeowner situation where I had a homeowner that bought his house. There was some back and forth as to how it was to be covered. And I'm like, look, at the end of the day, if you want to try to save $200 a year on this, fine. But it's not going to be with me. A year later, his home burned down. He went with me. So the conviction paid off there. And he had said that he was actually grateful because had it gone differently, he would have paid more out of pocket for the actual claim. And he's not sure he would have gotten everything back the way he did.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, dude, it sucks sometimes, but I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason, and if that conviction came out of that and like, it changed all the lives that you've impacted since then, like I would be proud if I was your best friend, you know what I mean? And that's kind of like some of the eye-opening things that I've been going through the last few years is understanding control the controllables, understanding that like everything happens for a reason, and then like just making the best out of every opportunity, and like you're a living proof of, it's like the Zig Ziglar quote that, if you believe in the product or service that you have can truly impact, the people that you're selling it to, you have a moral obligation to sell that to them. And so I think that's like a huge thing with like what you experience is like once you got that conviction, like you understood that like no matter what, like if you want to be, it's like one of those things like That's why in Uncaged, like we tell people what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. It's not a bunch of yes men, right? Like it's like, no, motherfucker, we love you. Therefore, we are going to tell you the hard things. And that sometimes has to translate over into the way you close clients because it's like, no, like I'm going to tell you the shit that no one else wants to tell you because it's going to be uncomfortable. You're probably not going to like it at first. And so if you just go and run off to the first person that's willing to bend over backwards and just do whatever it is that you want, then like you're not my type of client anyways. Because I only want to work with people that want expert opinions and listen to the fucking experts. But no, man, dude, I really appreciate our conversation here today. I think we were able to cover a lot. Like, what is, before we wrap up, like, what is like something that we can do to pay you back for the time that you spent here with us today?
Hmm. It's a good question. And honestly, I don't really know how to answer that one. So I guess the best answer I'm going to come up with here is pay attention to what your financials actually are and make sure that they are lining up with what you want them to do. So review your insurance, talk to your spouse, make sure that your dream life and her dream life are at least in sync, and make sure you have the financials behind it or are working towards it to make it happen. So that's not even necessarily something directly related to me, but if a guy wants some help reviewing his insurance policy, I'm happy to help.
Fuck yeah, man. No, man, I agree 100%. That's why, like, the 30-day challenge, like, I highly encourage you go through with a spouse because once y'all start to get synced up and get aligned on like what your life looks like and y'all understand that running parallel with each other works way better, that's the game changer. But dude, I appreciate you here. If you're listening to this, if you need help, David Oltman, easy to find. He's in Uncaged. So reach out to me, any of the other VIP members, they can connect you. But again, if you can't find him for whatever odd reason, I'm always here to connect anyone to David. He's a great dude. Been in Uncaged for a while, and it's been really cool just having him involved in the group and the community and seeing him grow. Both, before he got into Uncaged, but then also after, because I think clarity meeting action is a huge point that needs to be made. But guys, if y'all like this, give it a like, give it a share, leave us a comment, like let us know how we did. Reach out to myself, reach out to David, let us know what you took away from it. But we appreciate y'all and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.